Well, good evening. It is another live episode, full-time reaction, as the Dons were defeated 5-1 by Celtic this evening. But I guess this podcast could start well, and then our arses could completely collapse, and that would just be in similar show to how the Dons got on tonight. Phil, we'll come to you first for your immediate full-time reaction.
Just a little bit frustrating, really. We were decent in spells in the game, um, and on paper it looks like we've been absolutely battered. When in reality, on the pitch we weren't. Um, but it's a scoreline that's still just going to absolutely sap the little bit of confidence we were starting to build, I think.
It is. If we want any positives, I suppose, as Sam Gordon says, we're the only team to score against Celtic at home this season. I don't know if that's impressive or depressing that we're the only league side to score at Parkhead this season. But Callum, your thoughts?
I'd go with depressing the fact that nobody else has been able to put any goals past them. But I echo Phil's thoughts into that fact. It's frustrating. We had a lot of good chances, couldn't finish our dinner, and then Shaden Morris, of all people, man, just to have to squander an opportunity earlier on. Really, really annoying the fact that Celtic didn't. It's not like they were peppering our goal and doing had to make loads of saves to keep the scoreline at bay. And it's just we didn't take any of our chances. 3 or 4 decent opportunities in that first half, a couple in the second half, and we've only got a goal to show for it. Very, very frustrating. Like we couldn't even draw the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I think, yeah, definitely frustrating because we showed in that opening 20 minutes that we can cause Celtic problems, and it's the hope that kills you, and those early chances were giving me hope. God only knows how optimistic you were feeling with them, Callum. But Phil, we spoke last time out on the podcast about making changes and that Palaversa Nielsen combination. I think that for me was the biggest surprise given how Shinnie and Nielsen haven't worked. But we also spoke pre-Kilmarnock game about whether or not Dimitar Mitov would return and whether Ross Doon would keep the gloves with Mitov returning for this game. Ross Doon got the nod for tonight. Mitov's fit enough for the bench. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but fuck me, like questions are really going to be asked over Jimmy Talleen for why Dimitar Mitov didn't start. Yes, he had the knee brace, or certainly heavily strapped against Kilmarnock. Jimmy Talleen said pre-match managing his minutes, only one training session, but it doesn't look clever when he's fit. If he's fit enough for the bench, for me, he's got to be fit enough to start.
Yeah, it's a confusing one because you think, why take Doing out? Keep him sharp if you're that, uncertain on Mitov's, fitness. And if you're going to throw him in for one, I don't know why you wouldn't just throw him in for tonight. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And, like I say, hindsight's brilliant. And, you know, Doing maybe could do better for at least two, if not three of the goals. A little bit frustrating, really. Not the best night for him.
It's not. And Callum, I wonder though if the fact that he's not played Dimitar Mitov and Ante Palaversa, we've spoken on here, and I think it's okay as fans to class the game as a free hit as much as maybe we don't like to. Do you think Jimmy Tilleen's maybe viewed tonight as a bit of a free hit and kept Palaversa back for the weekend's game, which now has a huge importance, and especially after our goal difference taking an absolute tanking tonight?
I don't know if he'd class any game as a free hit, Jimmy Talleen. I think, but with the Palaverse one, it's maybe worrying at this point that he can't, go from Saturday to midweek and then at the weekend again. But maybe that's just the way things are right now, having been out of action for so long prior to joining us, and it's taken him a good while to get up to speed. So maybe that's more what it is. I would have preferred if he did play, but the fact we didn't even see him off the bench, and it was Clarkson that they went to as well, is maybe suggesting his fitness still isn't quite there, and he's still working to get to 100%. However, that being said, if he comes in and starts against Dundee United and we had to rest him tonight, then I'm okay with that. The Mitov one is weird for a goalkeeper to sort of have like a phased return is pretty bizarre. However, maybe he's just not quite 100% right. Maybe he felt that on Saturday against Kelly, but would have preferred for him to start. I thought Duhan hasn't done an awful lot wrong at all in the time that he's been in this side. In fact, he's been better than I thought he was going to be tonight.
Mhm.
Didn't cover himself in glory initially with the Daizen Maeda opener. I thought he should have come to it, but I realised it's maybe a bit far out. But a little bit of hesitation, and he'd previously been sort of dawdling on the ball a little bit. Nearly got caught out by Maeda, I think it was as well earlier, and I wonder if that maybe sort of shook him a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, that was the again, like we spoke, Phil, about the fact that we went to, playing out from the back, and we when Ross Doohan was in against Dundee, we were lumping the ball long, but we reverted to playing out from the back again tonight, and it almost as comfortable we were up until that point. The Ross Doohan got charged down by Daizen Maeda. That seemed to just spook him and our defence completely, and we were never the same since.
Yeah, massively. I mean, like you say, that one with Maeda charging him down, I think definitely had an effect. That opener, there's definitely a bit of hesitation there. Maybe he doesn't get to it if he rushes out, but he should have been there to make himself as big as possible. Just the fact that he just kind of strands himself halfway out the 6 yard box, just a little bit frustrating. But I think as well, I'm probably one of the more vocal critics of Shinnie. Also, I thought the opening sort of 10 minutes, although we were doing all right, and we created that early chance for Daba to try and get on the end of. I thought Shinnie was really slack as well and put us under a lot of pressure early on. Got caught in the ball a few times, a couple sort of half-weighted passes that were picked off. So I think that as well just didn't really help. We try to keep calm at the back, which the minute you show a little bit of nerve and reservation, Celtic are on you in a flash.
Yeah, and I suppose, we'll speak about the finishing, but both ends of the pitch tonight, I guess, didn't go to plan. But Gav Robertson saying, Brendan Rodgers has now won 18 of his 21 games against us. Jota loves scoring against us, as Ian Crocker continuously liked to remind us throughout the game. So, Gav Robertson goes on to say it's not just a Thielen issue. Bar the other league games there this season, there's some sort of mental block and lack of belief versus them. Paul Donaldson trying to highlight the fact that as depressing as the result is tonight, it won't define our season. I think we'll come on to that a little bit. But we won't have to play Celtic away again this season. Oh, don't you know how the SFA like to change things up in the split? So I'm not going to count my chickens on that. But another point from VK saying we've been poor last few games. It doesn't need Celtic to highlight our shortcomings, but they've maybe been ignored because we've won just like the first half of the season. It's an interesting point from VK because our shortcomings, Callum, did come in front of goals. Jeppe Okel's poor ball into Obde Dabag when a better ball probably gives him the opportunity to put us 1-0 up. Kevin Nisbet doesn't have the composure in front of goal to find the back of the net. And then we spoke about in the group chat, Phil mentioned Toby Keskinen forcing a cross. Jeppe Okel's taking a heavy touch. Celtic go up the other end of the pitch. Jota sclaffs his finish, but finds the bottom corner. So there's instances for me, I think, where the comment there about our own shortcomings are further highlighted when Celtic punish them.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, you mentioned the Jota goal there. That the contrast between how lucky he got there, but the fact that it still comes off for them. Meanwhile, with us, an open goal, and Kevin Nisbet drags it wide. There's another instance in the second half, in the first half. Jeppe Okel's desperate to get the ball onto his right before taking the shot on, pulling it wide, not even testing Schmeichel. And then every chance it really felt like they punished us. And it sort of felt similar to the game, the semi-final, where that I thought we started okay, and then all of a sudden we don't capitalise, and Celtic then go up the other end, and it's just one after the other, putting it in the back of the net, and it just feels like a movie we've seen before many a time, and I don't know. I feel like it's weird. I feel like we take some of those chances against someone else, and there's no method to that madness, but it just feels like this keeps happening where we've got the chances to go 1-0 up. We can go and put pressure on them, make it a different game, and okay, they might turn around and smash us anyway. But we don't take those chances. They take their very first and then don't look back from then on.
Yeah, as Ross Medine said, no other team constantly capitulates against Celtic, knew we would concede in added time. I mean, I didn't even see the fifth goal because as soon as Shayden Morris put the ball in the back of the net, I thought, I'll come through and try and get set up for going live. And then looked at my phone, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, of course. Oswald the Frisky saying clinical and not being clinical was essentially the difference there tonight. And it really is. I think when you looked at the stats from the first half, they had 6 shots, 3 on target. We had 5, none on target. And when you go to Parkhead, Ibrox, we said it on the last episode, Phil, you have to be clinical. But how frustrating was that final third tonight? And again, we spoke about Jeppe Okels and him improving game by game, but Callum highlighted in our group chat, maybe tonight we just saw how one-footed he really was. And I was a little bit frustrated because for how much he then wants to cut into his right foot, Topi Keskinen, could we look at maybe swapping wingers there, putting one on the left and Okels over to the right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, I'm quite a fan of Okels, and like I think he has been improving, but tonight just wasn't the one at all. And I mean, how often do we go to Celtic Park and don't create anything? And we created, arguably 4 chances in the first half. Obviously Tope maybe with a better touch, managed to put a ball back across the box instead of winning a corner. But yeah, just not clinical at all. Ockles, just his first touch, his sort of decision making, his persistence to only use his right foot, just came back to haunt us. And even then, outside of the chances, winning things like a corner, you've got to try and make the most of it. And I don't think we beat the first man once the entire evening. Just it's games you've got to make the most of the scraps you can get, and we didn't even get scraps. We got silver platter chances for the most part in that first half.
Yeah, Callum, you wanted to come in on that?
Just on the Ockles and Keskinen switching sides debate, I don't know if that would work because I feel like when you've got a right-sided player on the right-hand side, they've got to have the pace to beat their fullback and get the ball across. And I don't think Jeppe Ockels has that, which is I think why we've seen this persistence with him on the left and Keskinen on the right, because at least Keskinen's got that pace to get by their fullback. Jeppe Ockels probably doesn't have it, but then it's frustrating because you think Keskinen, before we signed him, that's where he flourished on the left-hand side. That's where he predominantly played, and you think he would flourish out there. But then we can't really put Ockles on the other side, I feel like, or it just wouldn't be too effective.
It's maybe an interesting one as well, because there was an instance in the first half as well where Ockles and McKenzie didn't look like they quite combined together, and that frustration was showing. Obviously, Topi and Jensen have maybe formed a bit of a better partnership, but yeah, I don't know. I struggle to judge that partnership off tonight. But in terms of partnerships, we might have to be looking at a new centre back pairing for the weekend. Christers Tober's going off with a hamstring knock. Callum, given the scoreline and how the game was, should he have just been taken off straight away instead of letting it run for another 10 minutes?
Yeah, it was weird because he looked like once he got up, he looked like he was fine. He looked like he was okay, and he was sort of doing movements that when he lifting his high knees, where I'm thinking it doesn't look like something you do if you tweaked a hamstring. But when you've got the change ready, and if it is something that could potentially be aggravated by him continuing, and at that scoreline, I would have probably preferred them to make the change, just to not risk him. Alfie Dorrington might finally get his chance at the weekend. I've not really seen enough of him to be convinced at all, but it is a frustrating when it feels like we've finally got a good partnership in there between Tobers and Knooster, and now that might be ripped up and might have to start again. And especially when, Dundee United, Sam Dalby up there, Louis Moult, whoever, physical players, Christers to Tobers, ideal for that. And if he's missing against Dundee United, then I do worry.
Yeah, and if Phil, kind of on that comment there from Callum about partnerships and flourishing, Kaiser puts in a comment about when he's seen Shinnie and Nielsen in the lineup, thought that was us beat before we even took kickoff. I kind of don't understand this breaking up that partnership as well. We spoke about, they've played 3 games, 3 wins. Yeah, I know Callum says managing Ante Palaversa's minutes, but I'm struggling to kind of accept those 2 changes on Duhan and Ante in particular. I didn't really mind the Dabag for Gay change because again we discussed that and kind of having a go, but I'm assuming obviously with the hindsight of the scoreline, that's why it hurts a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Celtic gave us the run around all night, and they were always going to do that. And I don't know if Palaversa would have changed that too much. Definitely would have brought a little bit more quality. But yeah, it's a weird one because, like I say, I think everyone can tell that they just don't really quite work well together. And then, even then, like Shinnie's role, I couldn't really quite figure out. At one point, I thought he was there just to man mark McGregor, but then McGregor still somehow ended up free, and then it looked like he was man marking Engels, and it just didn't seem to click for one reason or the other. It didn't give us really any bite, didn't really give us much control, so I don't really quite get the point in changing it.
Yeah, and I kind of agree on that point about what their roles were because I also thought I kind of wasn't sure what Nilsson was doing because it looked like he was man marking Rio Hatate because there was one point where Celtic were flowing forward and Nilsson was just like stuck to Hatate instead of closing down the ball. And I was like, oh, I know where my rant's going if this finds the back of the net. But Callum, I'm going to come to you for this one because I know Neil was a big kind of fan of the similar thoughts that Mad Jock McPherson puts in here. I'd just like us to stop getting hammered against this lot. A crap 1-0 loss is better. I know Neil thought, at halftime, had we played shit and been 3-0 down, it would have been a bit more acceptable than actually playing half decent and finding ourselves 3-0 down. But it's that kind of caught between a rock and a hard place of having a go and sitting in for 90 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean we've gone there to try and win the game, and for me that is better. It's not paid off, but for example, if Nisbet's open goal is a foot the other side of the post instead of the other way around, then perhaps it's a different story. And I suppose we've got to remember how annoyed we all were when Jim Goodwin parked the bus against Celtic at Tawdry. I don't think we even had a shot. If we do, I certainly don't remember it. And then, oh, surprise, surprise, we ended up losing anyway.
I think that's a bit different, though. That was at Tawdry, not Parkhead.
Okay. Well, if we hadn't had a shot today and we'd still lost, would you have been happy?
No.
There you go.
I mean, it doesn't feel like there's much point in analysing too much more about the game, but any positives that we could take from the game, Phil?
Oh, God, now you're pressing me. Jesus. No, like I said, I thought at times the shape looked all right. We kind of managed to nullify a little bit of the threat when they were actually trying to do what they normally do, which is kind of play through us. It was literally much like the semi-final where it just felt like every counter that came, there was just nothing we could do. I mean, it's probably the quickest front line in the league. So I wasn't really surprised by that. But I thought at times our play looked all right. We passed it well. At times, some nice link up between Nisbet, Daba, and Keskinen as well. But yeah, like I say, I think it's on the back of the scoreline and just sort of the manner in which the goals came about. It's really hard to dig at positives immediately following the game. But yeah, I'm just hoping that it doesn't tail into Sunday.
Yeah, it's good to see that most of you have still retained a sense of humour based on this. And for anybody obviously that's watching this, I was amused at your reaction to me asking you that question, Phil, and Callum laughing, but I'm going to come to him as well after I've gone through some of these comments. But Stephen McPhee picking up on similar thoughts to Sam Gordon, saying scoring against Celtic at Parkhead isn't for everybody. Graham Gibb, no positives at all. Michael Taylor picking up on Fletcher Boyd's performance when he came on. Probably for me, the only positive outside of the first 20 minutes was seeing a decent chunk of minutes for young Fletcher. Sam Gordon saying everything except the 5 goals Celtic scored was excellent. And Martin Davidson saying the only positive is the game is now ended. So like I said, good to see most of you still retaining a sense of humour despite defeat. Callum, anything for you to take from that?
Yeah, I'd say Fletcher Boyd did look promising when he came on. The one bit I really enjoyed was immediately after coming on, he just sort of was niggling at Callum McGregor, which I thought that's quite good. Young lad coming in and just getting involved, which I quite liked. The fact that we scored, Shayden Morris taking a chance, although he did miss one, is at least encouraging. And I suppose the positive looking ahead is that we had no injuries other than Christos Tobers, no further injuries, I should say, and that didn't look too serious, as well as the fact one of Hibs and Dundee United or both will drop points tomorrow night, so that's great news as well.
Yeah, we'll see what comes on that. But I guess as Oswald DeFrisky says, the positives were that we were actually getting the chances. We'd be worried if we didn't get in the positions for the chances. I guess obviously the worry is the fact that we aren't taking them in that game. But going back to what Paul Donaldson said earlier in the episode about that it not being, I guess, season defining as such, but Sunday certainly feels like it could be season defining, depending, of course, on the outcome of the result tomorrow night at Tannadice and where the two teams go into that game. But before we go into that game, I guess we've got to talk about some transfer news. And of course, it feels very appropriate with Callum being on the podcast that there is transfer news to discuss. So I'll come to you first. Callum, Jamie McGrath is leaving the club. I guess no real surprise to most of us. Biggest surprise maybe is that he's going to Hibs on a 4-year deal in the summer.
I mean, I didn't expect it to be. I mean, clearly Aberdeen didn't expect it to be announced at this stage either. I didn't know that he was going to. They said, did Aberdeen say in the statement, if I'm remembering correctly, that he's not going to play for the rest of the season? He's out injured.
Mm-hmm.
Was that going to be the case prior to this move being complete? I don't remember hearing anything about that.
No, not definitively anyway. So I'm hoping he's not making an appearance at Player of the Year either.
Oh, that's true. I mean, it's bold from Hibs, giving him a 4-year deal, given he's got some injury record coming off a lengthy injury this time round. A 4-year deal when I'm sure he'll be earning good money. But if we're not going to offer it, it's not a Jimmy Thielen signing, and we're not offering the 4 years. And to be honest, ever since probably that pass at Parkhead last time round, I don't recall anything of note that he did in a positive way, because I can certainly remember him missing that penalty against Rangers. So it probably sounds like sour grapes. He was good for a bit, wasn't he? That's what I'll say on him. See you later.
Yeah, well, he's dead to me now, to be honest. Yeah, no, I think it's a bit poor the way he's acted. And again, given the hate like the likes of Duke got, fair play. I wonder when he switched off because I saw he had the iPad out watching the game tonight. For the way his agent acted, I'm sure Jamie McGrath's going to get similar because it's very much sounds like him and his agent were telling Aberdeen one thing, yet agreeing something else with Hibs. And certainly, and I'm very impressed by the club's statement on Jamie McGrath leaving. They kind of pulled no punches into the fact that they feel let down. That was the kind of impression that I was getting. Phil, did you kind of maybe pick up similar, or what's your thoughts on the now confirmed departure of Jamie McGrath?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go fully sour grapes and say he was shite and always has been shite, and I'm glad he's gone, albeit that's really not the case. But no, I'm glad the club are sticking to their model and not basically bowing to the pressure that he was trying to obviously put on for a longer deal. From what I've heard, he was asking for ridiculous money.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of glad we didn't go for that. And good luck to Hibs for whatever they've just spaffed up the wall for him. But yeah, it's just, I don't know why I thought it would be different with McGrath at Aberdeen. I think it's just once again proven his track record of just being a bit of a ratty bloke when it comes to contract negotiations. I mean, did the same with Dundee United, did the same with Hearts. Um, yeah, just pretty poor form from him, really. Um, but yeah, fair play. Football's a short career. If you're about to take a 4-year deal, knock yourself out. Kind of glad he's not going to play again because I don't think he would get the best reception. And much like you, I would be surprised if he showed up at Player of the Year.
Yeah, well, that's why I would be surprised because I don't think the reception will be pretty. But Callum, you sure you don't want to stick the boot in after me and Phil have done so already?
No, I think you guys have got it covered, actually. I think I'll sit this one out and stick by. He was good for a bit. See you later.
It's fine because you already got stitched up the last time when we, well, actually when we signed Jamie McGrath on this podcast, and I made you read out the poll, and when he, did turn good for a spell, it was your face plastered all over TikTok.
So enjoy that one, Aberdeen Focus. You can put that on your TikTok, but put them on there instead of me this time. Thank you.
Fine. Won't be the first time this podcast has gone viral for the wrong reasons. In terms of the length of contract he's taken at Hibs, a lot has been made about the fact that Aberdeen didn't offer him a 4-year deal. I think as Phil mentioned, the wages he was maybe after. Callum, people are obviously comparing McGrath and Nielsen getting a 3-year deal. But I think what we have to remember is that Nielsen was a Jimmy Talleen signing and a different player, different stage of his career, but it's going to be something, depending what, I guess, side of the fence you lie on, that is going to be used against Aberdeen when it comes to signing players just now.
Yeah, I suppose so. But Sivert Nilsson, holding midfielder, Jamie McGrath, creative outlet that been playing on the wing. When he's not particularly fast now, he's not going to get any faster in future, is he? So it's totally different. And Nilsson comes in with the leadership qualities, having been a captain at Brann and elsewhere, possibly. I don't quite know. But he comes in with that, as you say. He's a Jimmy Talleen signing. He's pivotal to the way that Jimmy Talleen wants to play. Jamie McGrath isn't. He's not a quick, direct winger. In terms of playing a 10, you could maybe make the argument that he could be of use there. Certainly, he's shown that he's capable of getting in amongst the goals for us, but it's totally different. To use that argument, it doesn't really quite add up because it's totally different types of players. And it'd be like comparing, well, it's not quite the same because obviously both outfield players, but like comparing McGrath to a goalkeeper and saying, why would you sign an older goalkeeper when the job asked of them is completely different?
Yeah, exactly. The minutes and the exertion that they're going to need. But it's funny as well, Phil, because Paul Donaldson makes an interesting point around the pre-contract and how it all works. Because, of course, Jamie McGrath out with an injury, the club, I'm sure, have paid towards the surgery and the rehab. Paul Donaldson saying that, in his opinion, Jamie McGrath should no longer have access to Cormac Park or the AFC medical staff. And I don't know how the ins and outs of that work, but other people in the comments suggesting that he is replaceable. Do you share a similar opinion? Obviously, again, kind of going on the comments that you mentioned around his wages, that's going to be freed up to invest in other players. Obviously, we've got options to buy on Obde Dabag, Jeppe Okels just now, which I'm sure people are going to still maybe remain out on that jury, but potential to be reinvested or invest it in some of the youth players that are coming up the ranks. I'm thinking of the likes of Finlay Marshall, Alfie Stewart. You've got those players just now. Fletcher Boyd, potentially opportunity to give him minutes as well.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to Paul's point, very much in agreement that I would like nothing more for us than to just leave him out in the dark. But I think the PFA would probably have our arse in court, and it'd be a nightmare. But yeah, definitely, I think someone who is replaceable. There's no doubts that he was good for us early on in this season, but after that, it just never quite returned. And like I say, for a player that was probably asking to be one of the top earners at the club, that money can be well spent elsewhere. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure we could probably find somebody on half that would fill that role more consistently and potentially be less made of glass. But it'll be interesting to see what route the club go down, whether they go and try and, blow the bank on someone to maybe fill that number 10 role, or if they do, like you say, look at sort of trying to integrate the likes of Alfie Stewart, Fletcher Boyd, and spend the money elsewhere.
Or Callum, as the comment that was just on screen, Dante Polvara could fill that role, couldn't he, when he's fully fit?
Well, you mentioned players being made of glass there. It's just a shame Dante Polvara is as well, because I really, really, really wanted to work out for him. It'd just be great. But yeah, I totally do agree in terms that he could be that sort of box crashing midfielder that we all hope, or well, I certainly really hope, and I think Phil agrees anyway, that Polvara can be. And I suppose when you've also still got Leighton Clarkson as well, work out what the hell to do with him, Papi Habib Gay as that sort of number 10. It's not going to be it's not a gaping hole, and the fact that he's not going to play for us the rest of the season and nobody really seems that bothered probably tells you all that you need to know.
Mm-hmm. In terms then of the game this weekend, Phil, there's been a couple of comments about it being must win. Does it feel like a must win on Sunday?
Yeah, I think so. I think off the back of today, we can kind of potentially take the hit. I don't think any of us really went in expecting to beat Celtic, and sort of keep that couple runs of wins going. I think it's important that we don't let it, like I said, derail us, because it's got every opportunity to do that. And once the losses start piling up again, that's immediately the pressure back on us. So I think it's really vital that, as Jimmy said before, after the 6-0 at Hampden, we just kind of forget about it after tonight and just fully focus on Sunday and making sure we pick up the 3 points.
Well, Callum, I suppose the last time we got humbled by Celtic, we faced opposition from the City of Discovery and won that game, so maybe a good omen ahead of the weekend. But again, going back to that Paul Donaldson comment from earlier about, our season's not going to be defined by tonight's game, could Sunday's game potentially be season defining in that race for third place?
Yeah, obviously we don't know what's going to happen between Dundee United and Hibs. There's a chance that we're still sitting third. There's a chance that we're behind Dundee United in fourth. But regardless, if we lose on Sunday, then we're chasing, and that's not the place you want to be with 10 games remaining of the season. We want to put we can extend the gap to 4 points to Dundee United. We'd need to have that cushion because we've seen things can go very tits up, and you'd hope that we could then build on that. And beating Dundee United when they've been in and around us and they're pushing us, you'd think if we can beat them at home with a healthy crowd, that would really give them the belief to push on towards the end of the season and hold on to third spot.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking. We're not sitting here ruling out Hibs just now, in that race either. But obviously, given the fact that we're playing Dundee United this weekend, it's a current 10-goal swing in our goal difference. We're sitting on -8, and they're sitting on +2. Obviously, as you said, Callum, without knowing what happens tomorrow. And I think Phil Callum makes a really good point, because once we become the chasing team, that's where our goal difference is really going to hurt us.
Oh, massively. And I think that's, again, why tonight's quite frustrating. Just the fact it has totally tanked that goal difference, which, with how close it has been, basically from third all the way down to, eighth at the moment, that goal difference becomes vitally important, especially as we get closer at the split and sort of defining those European spots. Like I say, depending on what happens between Dundee United and Hibs, it's kind of got that little bit of a 6-pointer feel about it already, which isn't too great for the old stress levels.
Yeah, only the teams 8th and below have a worse goal difference than us. Obviously, the fact that we then conceded to Maeda made ours now worse than St Mirren. So, I mean, not a lot of teams actually only two teams outside of the top two have a positive goal difference, because Hearts is currently 0. So goal difference maybe not a huge factor as one would think, but certainly it feels like it's going to come down to that in the race for third. Callum, in terms of the way we line up this weekend, obviously Jimmy Talline changed things in the midfield and goals. Palaversa and Mitov straight back into the team on Sunday?
I certainly hope so. I'd stick with the Daba Nisbet front two. However, I would like to take this opportunity to point out to Sky, if you'd watched a minute of the time that they played together against Kilmarnock at the weekend, then you'd know that it was going to be Nisbet in behind Daba and not the other way around. And also, if you bothered to look at your team sheet they had in front of you, you'd know it's Christers Tobers and not Christian Tobers as well, while we're at it. But yeah, to answer your question, Palaversa and Mitov back in, and that would be the only changes I'd like to see. I like to keep it the way things are. I think Nisbet, he's not got the pace that Daba has. I think he can run the channels cause a lot of havoc for the Dundee United defence. And Nisbet, in terms of his link-up play, can be very, very effective, and he can get him close to Ode Daba. Then I think that could cause them problems.
Yeah, Phil, I'm kind of in agreement with that front pairing, sticking with that, even though Kevin has but only got 45 minutes tonight. I was maybe wondering if he was getting rested ahead of the weekend. Pape didn't show me enough tonight in his 45 to merit any reason for him starting. Even the most used sub in the Scottish Premiership, despite his goal, probably hasn't done enough to merit a start as well. Are you in agreement that it would probably just be likely those two changes? I guess the biggest dependency on that not being 3 would be Christers Tober's fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other one for me is potentially Morrison for Ockles and shifting Topi out to the left. Obviously, we've seen it before where Shaden, albeit a consolation goal, has been grabbed this time round, but Shaden does get himself on the score sheet and then finds himself back on the bench. I think it's telling as well. You might judge our opinions on it, but our fourth Reds man the match leaderboard has Shaden Morris at the top, and he's played the least amount of minutes out of everybody. So yeah, I would maybe like to see him getting a start and seeing what he can do. Like Callum said, like the pace of Daba up top, as well as having Keskinen and Morris there, could cause a lot of issues for United. And I think after today, I think it's important that we try and sort of regain that sort of quick tempo around our front line to try and punish them.
Yeah, I guess, Colin, I'm going to come back to you in terms of speaking about this game being season defining. Graham Gibbs speaking about the split already. We're 5 league games off of the split, and he says we need to have a lead in third place before the split, saying that we'll be at Tynecastle post split. It's also very assumptuous that Hearts make it into the top 6. But the 5 remaining league fixtures are at home to Dundee United, St Johnstone away after the Scottish Cup. Then it's an international break before we host Motherwell, Ross County away, and then at home to Rangers under their interesting management choice as that last game pre-split. So out of that 15 points, what realistically, because I love doing this sort of stuff with you, should we be looking at points-wise from these 5 games?
15? I reckon.
There you go.
No, I think, well, I have to win against Dundee United. St Johnstone, Motherwell, 13, actually, maybe. The Rangers one, a draw, perhaps, maybe. Why can't we win them all? We can win them all, maybe. Guys, somebody agree with me. Don't think I'm going mental.
I'm agreeing with you, Callum. I'm agreeing with you. 13 to 15 points, I'd be over the moon with. Almost, some might say, expect it against the new Orange Order that's in charge at Rangers.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we can't beat that management team, I'm going to be very annoyed. In terms of this weekend, Phil, Calm just said there, we must win. Is it would you accept a draw at this stage? Again, like I said, obviously it's a bit difficult doing this ahead of Dundee United playing, so we don't know where we're going to sit going into the game. But if we are starting that game on Sunday in third place, although again, depending what happens in the Edinburgh Derby as well, could have a knock-on effect on that. But would you then accept a draw?
Probably not. I'm in agreement with Callum. I think Sunday really is a must-win. probably more season defining than this evening was, in my opinion. It's also just nice to get one over Jim Goodwin, especially after the Tannadice fixture. So yeah, for me, like I say, it feels like a 6 pointer already, regardless of what the Hibs Dundee United score is going to be. So definitely a must win for me.
Yeah, it kind of almost feels like it's been a season-defining week for the three clubs in third, fourth, and fifth just now. Obviously for Hibs, they travel to Tannadice tomorrow. Then they've got the derby, Dundee United coming up here as well. A real blockbuster Sunday of Scottish football awaits. And yeah, Phil, I think you're absolutely right. It would be delightful to get one over Jim Good after how smug he was at Tannadice as well. Callum, are you going to be at the game on Sunday?
I will be. I've got it off work, thankfully, so that'll be nice. I'll be watching the Kevin Holtless Dundee United after they were held to ransom by him, which I thought was just worth a little funny mention.
Yeah, that very true. In terms then of the game itself as well, it's probably going to shape up to be some atmosphere as well. I'm sure the United fans will travel in good numbers, and given the importance that this game now has for us, hopefully we start to see the sold out signs maybe reappearing at Pittodrie.
That would be nice. Yeah, I don't know what ticket sales are looking like just now. I think last I saw there was at least a few hundred left anyway, but maybe you never know. Getting closer to the time, it might. But I mean, I'm sure the players will need every bit of backing between now and the end of the season if we're going to push on and finish third. So it would be nice. Although I do understand, that finances are bad for everybody right now.
Yeah, and maybe the enthusiasm's not quite there right this second after tonight's game, but hopefully come Thursday, Friday, that little bit of pre-match excitement starts getting in, especially with no game on the Saturday as well, something to do on the Sunday.
Absolutely.
People.
Absolutely. Sundays at church, Glenn. Can't beat it.
Yeah, exactly. Where else would you rather be than church on a Sunday? And hopefully celebrating 3 points as well. But three of us have been back on the podcast tonight. And look, it's been a short 3/4 of an hour look back at what was a disastrous night. Like I said, we started well. The middle was maybe a bit questionable, but we've picked up and hopefully we'll continue this momentum in. And next time when we reconvene, we've got 3 points to talk about. Thank you very much to both Callum and Phil for joining me tonight, and also all of you who joined us here live on the YouTube channel as ever. Remember to like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and follow us on audio platforms. Until next time, we'll see you then.